Welcome to the Lincolnville Museum. My name is Kimberlyn Elliott. I'm the Assistant Director here at the museum. We'd like to welcome you to our first virtual tour all about Lincolnville icon Frank Butler. We hope you enjoy, and as always, if you'd like more information or just would like to learn more about the museum, please visit us at www.lincolnvillemuseum.org. Thank you. Just south of Saint Augustine on Anastasia Island lies an area known as Butler Beach. Today home to 2 county parks and residential neighborhoods, it was once the location of a bustling black beach named after its influential founder, Frank Butler. But who was Frank Butler? And what happened to the area? Let's take a closer look. Frank Bertram Butler was born in DuPont, Georgia, August 4, 1885. His mother ran a restaurant and his father was a fisherman who also sold lemonade on local trains. In 1902, Butler married his first wife, Mamie Davis, and his daughter, Minnie Mae Butler, was born. The family moved to Fernandina Beach, and then, by 1914, ended up in Saint Augustine. In Fernandina, Butler worked as a bartender, and when he arrived in Saint Augustine, he worked as a butcher in a local shop. Perhaps inspired by his parents' own entrepreneurial spirit, Butler himself longed to open his own business. By 1914, he was leasing 87.5 Washington Street in Lincolnville, where he owned and operated his own business, the Palace Market. The Palace Market was known as a grocery store with great prices, great quality of goods, and it served both black and white patrons alike. He even offered change in the form of custom tokens to encourage repeat visitors. His second wife, Minnie, and his daughter, Minnie Mae, helped him to run this very successful business. With one successful business already under his belt, Butler soon moved on to his next. In 1915, he began buying land in Lincolnville. In 1924, he opened the College Park Realty office, and in the next year began expanding into West Augustine, where he opened the College Park subdivision. He was known for his low rental rates and willingness to work with his renters, which became especially important during the oncoming Depression. So, the Executive Director of the Lincolnville Museum, Ms. Gail Phillips, was able to interview a descendant of Mr. Frank Butler's, so we're just going to ask her a few questions about her interview and see what she learned about Mr. Frank Butler. For my first question, Gail, so we know a lot about Frank Butler as a businessman and a community member, but can you describe more of Mr. Butler as a family man?
Well, from the conversation I had, he was described as being a loving person. You know, he was a big man, you know, in stature. So it was like, you know, the descendant that I talked to referred to him as Papa, and how, you know, they were just interested in being loved and, you know, loving on him and being loved by him and sitting on his knee. And I think that they were in high school when he passed away, so they were remembrance of he and his wife Minnie, you know, were when they were younger children. But basically, that he was a hardworking person, but that he was also a family person. That their family had a lot of spirituality and a sense of, you know, wanting to give back to the community.
Speaking about people supporting him in the community, let's just kind of talk about the process of Mr. Butler building his businesses. Was there a lot of community involvement? How did he fit into the community as a whole? What about that?
Well, I think when he first came, he worked obviously at another store until he was able to start his own business. But the business that he built was primarily operated by a lot of family support. I know Miss Minnie Butler supported him. She was there according to his relative, that there were other family members. His son-in-law was involved in the business. She had an aunt whose husband also worked in the business. And so he relied on those people in his family as part of what helped to, I guess, support and operate the business on a day-to-day basis, so that he could continue, I guess, to find other things that he did in the community.
So it kind of seems like we're talking about community on two levels then. Mm-hmm. On one level, his family and friends, and then the Lincolnville community at large too. That's kind of cool. In 1927, Frank Butler began buying land on Anastasia Island, between the Intercoastal Waterway and the Atlantic Ocean, with the aim of creating a black beach. At this time of Jim Crow, black beachgoers weren't allowed on the popular Saint Augustine beach. In fact, there wasn't a beach for them to enjoy between Fernandina Beach, American Beach, and Daytona Beach in the south, over 100 miles. Butler received early resistance to the project, and his repeated requests for a road out to the area were blocked or ignored. But over time, he was able to develop the area into a bustling black beach. At its height, Butler Beach boasted 11 businesses, including the Seabreeze Casino, a resort, and many restaurants. How about Butler Beach? We talked about that a lot, and it's a very well-known area. Did your interviewee have any memories of Butler Beach that she would like to share?
Not a lot. She said that, she remembers going as a child, that her grandmother actually spent more time there than Frank did, that, but they did go sometimes on the weekend, that they would spend time at the beach. She says she hasn't really been back to the beach a lot in her adult life because, it's not the same as when she was growing up. The interesting thing is that her family moved away from St. Augustine when she was young, and that may be part of her reasoning why she didn't have a lot of time that she spent there. But that she remembers it was a lot of hard work, because even though they had all these different businesses, that they were kind of stretched out. So even when they went, it was more like, the family members were working and they were just there kind of like observing things. They, even though some of her older siblings worked in some of the businesses, they did not spend a lot of time there, but they did go to the beach and, as a family on different occasions, especially on the weekends. And that was the time when more people from St. Augustine were spending time at the beach because of the recreation and the, the clubs and the restaurants and so forth that were open there.
Oh yeah, definitely. It seems like Butler Beach was the place to be for a nice amount of time. If you're an African American either living in St. Johns County or passing through, it seemed like the place to go.
No, I was just going to say that being at the beach was the thing, because when you think about, there are only so many things that Black people could do at the time, and Butler Beach was one of those recreation areas that was available to them. So I'm sure I can just imagine what it was like. I know when I was younger, we spent time there. Our weekends were more on American Beach, which is Fernandina. And so we would come to Butler Beach during the week when it was very quiet. So just from the history that we've uncovered here, working at the museum, we can see that they had big crowds of people on the beach on the weekends.
Oh yeah, the pictures of the cars all stretched out and the beauty queen.
It was like...
While building his businesses, Butler also focused on fostering community. Located in the heart of Lincolnville, he formed business associations and partnerships with his neighbors, including James G. Reddick, who served as the principal of the Excelsior School. Butler served as a trustee at St. Paul A.M.E. Church and also as the president of the Colored Business and Professional Men's League. He helped to extend access to voting by having polling booths in his Palace Market.
One of the other things that Mr. Butler did, and I kind of talked with his relative about it, she didn't have a lot of comment because she wasn't alive during that time period, or she was not living in St. Augustine at that time, was that he did have kind of like an unofficial stand in the community where people looked up to him, and he was also affectionately known as the mayor of Lincolnville. I don't know if you talked about that with some of the other people, but I did share that with her, and she agreed that he was often called on when there were different disputes around town. And
in 1958, Butler sold some of his land on Anastasia Island for the creation of a Black State Park. Unfortunately, in 1973, Mr. Butler passed away before seeing the creation of his imagined park. 7 years later, the state of Florida transferred the land to St. Johns County for for the creation of county parks bearing Mr. Butler's name. Today, visitors can enjoy the waters of the Atlantic and the Intercoastal at Frank B. Butler County Parks East and West. The parks bearing his name are just one legacy to the testament of a great businessman and community worker in Saint Augustine's Black history. In 2000, the Great Floridians 2000 Award was posthumously given to Butler. It celebrates Floridians who improve their community through lifelong achievement. The plaque for Butler's award currently resides at his historic residence at 87 Washington Street, which today stands as a historic building in the Lincolnville district. Butler's legacy of philanthropy and community work was continued through the humanitarian efforts of his children and grandchildren. His daughter, Minnie Mae Edwards, created a $1,000 scholarship for Saint Augustine students to Bethune-Cookman University. She also donated 14 lots of land in West Augustine to the university. Her son and Butler's grandson, Rudolph Hadley, donated land to the Saint Augustine chapter of Habitat for Humanity, which was later renamed in his honor, Hadley's Village, in 1997. So, Gail, you were talking about Mr. Butler and his family in terms of working within the community and being a good community member. When we were doing the research for this video, we noticed that community service was a large trend. Can you kind of speak to how his descendants continued that?
Yeah, well, his one grandson, Rudolph Hadley, which, you'll see some things in the community with his name on it. He became an educator. I think he went on to become a principal, but he carried on that tradition quite a bit. And there's a community on the west side of Saint Augustine that bears the name of Hadley Village, which is a Habitat for Humanity's project that he donated the first 2 lots to the community so that he could get that project, kick-started, and that he continued to do other things, just to keep the family tradition of being a part of the community.
Frank Butler built his businesses at a time where segregation limited the opportunities for Black Americans. In opposition to Jim Crow, he carved spaces where Black patrons could shop, frolic, and live with dignity. So the next time you find yourself at Butler Beach, heading down Minnie Street or Gloria Avenue, take a second to reflect on the enduring legacy of Frank Butler and his family.